Useful versus useless, the rhetoric of disability advocacy. Disability rhetoric. When fighting for disability rights, most arguments are made to appeal to non-disabled people, as they are the ones who hold majority of the power when talking about legislative or social issues regarding how people view disability. One typical angle that is used to approach how disabled people add to society is by saying that we add a certain level of worth to society, which makes us more appealing for able-bodied people, as the more we benefit society, the more we benefit them, appealing to a more selfish angle. This, however, excludes anyone who does not or cannot be productive because of their disability. This style of rhetoric is very common. It appears in majority of disability rights discussions, talking about the upsides or the pros of certain disabilities and how they can be used to be more productive or help others. This is especially apparent in My Orphan Disease Has Given Me a New Family. In An Orphan Disease Has Given Me a New Family, Rosemary Garland Thompson, who goes by RGT, wrote an article in which she discusses how disabilities should not be edited away with technology, but instead be seen as a progress of evolution. However, in appealing to a more able-bodied audience, such as transhumanists and scientists, she alienates those with disabilities who are not useful within this sort of metric. One such instance of her doing so is with the metaphor canaries in the coal mine of human existence. This metaphor was used to describe how disabled people have served as a warning sign for those who are not disabled from evolution's point of view. Canaries are very useful birds, but they are majority useful to people in their suffering. Canaries were useful because they would pass out in coal mines, not because they were living happy lives. They were evolution's form of carbon dioxide and methane detectors, which, while this appeals great to the transhumanists and scientists that Rosemary Garland Thompson was originally intending to refer to, it also continues that idea that they are an innovation, a tool, again, to benefit society. Canaries were given values based on the way they helped others. They were not given value the same way other birds are because they're pretty and they fly around and they're living their life free, but because of how they can benefit society. So by saying that disabled people are useful in the way canaries were useful in coal mines, continue this idea that disabled people have to give back for their disability. Speaking of giving back to their disability, Rosemary Garland Thompson also continues the rhetoric of making up for disabilities. She uses 4 main examples within her article, talking about my blind friend with excellent orientation skills that can lead people out of burning buildings or places when the lights go out. How people with autism, some of them have a capacity to focus that boosts creativity. A person who happens to be a small person who consumes fewer resources, or a deaf friend who avoids noise pollution in crowded spaces when bars where social and professional life begin to take place. Each of these examples has someone making up for the fact they are disabled. A person who is seeing would not be expected to have to lead a group of people out of a burning building or a dark building when the lights go out, and that shouldn't be placed on their value. However, for the blind friend, that is something that makes up for the fact they're blind. Oh, they're blind, but they can do this. Again, the people with autism boosting creativity, that again is creating works, producing, that sort of idea that using your disability to create more of a good instead of using the disability to fuller live your own life. Again, a small person who consumes less resources. Again, less of a drain on society. That sort of idea of less resources means more efficient. It brings that idea of less resources means more efficient, which again is more in producing things instead of focusing on the person being a human person deserving of respect. And the deaf friend. Specifically, Rosemary Garland Thompson uses the words professional life takes place now when discussing the noise pollution of bars. Most people don't like the noise pollution in super crowded areas. However, mentioning professional life shows how this is immediately appealing to a more productive and production-heavy society such as our American society today. It brings that idea of using a disability to add more and become more useful to others instead of being valued as a person first who has a disability that shouldn't detract from that merit. Disabilities can limit productivity, my personal experience. For me, I have a chronic pain condition that comes from hypermobility and the loosening of my connective tissues. In doing so, my ways to mitigate my symptoms actually make me less productive, and me unmitigating my symptoms also make me less productive. With an increased amount of pain, it decreases my amount of focus that I can give my schoolwork and my actual work. It also decreases my amount of energy, which limits the amount of things I can do per day. If I try to mitigate and manage my symptoms, I am actually intentionally limiting how much I can do. One of the ways I limit this is by specifically changing my pathing or changing how I'm moving around so that I use less energy and do less steps per day, which makes me less productive and doing less things, but makes me less in pain. In addition, as I'm giving this presentation, I am having to wear compression stockings and ankle-high boots. The ankle-high boots to give support to my ankles, and the compression stockings specifically designed to limit my movement, to limit the amount of pain I am experiencing. In addition to that, while I am trying my best to look as professional as possible, that is also limited by my mobility aids. I am again wearing gloves because any sort of cold temperature would again cause my joints to go stiffer quicker than most people, limiting how much I can do or move for other people. And if I weren't wearing these gloves, I would still be wearing another pair of gloves called compression gloves, again, specifically designed to limit how much I can do. The way I mitigate my pain and limit how much pain and suffering I am going through is by limiting how productive I can be. My disability does not help me become more productive. There's no upsides here. I am less useful to society because of my disability. However, that should not be the basis for arguing on disability rights or what causes someone to be worthy of respect, especially in the disability realm. Why this rhetoric matters. First of all, it's playing into an able-bodied perspective continuously the same ideology that has previously put down all disabled people. This ideology that people have to be useful in order to be useful to society is exactly what was used against all disabled people so many times ago, where they are less useful to society because of their disability, therefore should have less rights or less a right to exist. And again, this alienating this group of disabled people from supposedly empowering pieces such as my orphan disease has given me a new family can push back any efforts that those groups have made to try to shift the ideology. If you're trying to shift the ideology away from people's usefulness being what is important in order to their brand, it means that you are continuing this rhetoric that you have to be useful and proving instead that you are useful, instead of trying to prove that usefulness shouldn't be the metric that we are using for disability advocacy. When you are continuing this style of rhetoric, especially in disability pieces, it's important to realize how much of these subtle biases from an ableist perspective are invading your work, such as the idea of being useful or the idea of making up for or overcoming that. An able-bodied perspective when writing about disabilities and disability rhetoric can actually undermine the intended intention behind most of these rhetorical pieces advocating for disability rights. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and here is my works cited.